Once upon a time, a young prince set out in search for love and adventure. He'd only gone a short distance when he encountered a pagan knight who had recently returned from the Holy Land. He attacked the knight and killed him. But in so doing, he received a wound that wouldn't heal. As time went on, the young prince became a king. But the wound never healed. He was, we are told, too ill to live and unable to die. He was unable to stand or to perform adequately the duties of a king. He had discovered that he could get temporary relief from his pain by fishing. And so he is called the Fisher King. Now, there are many adaptations of the story of the Fisher King, but this is mine. One evening about dusk, he was out fishing when a young man came riding through the forest, saw the lone fisherman, who to him is only a lone fisherman, but to us, of course, is the king, and asked him if there was a place he could stay for the night. The king, the fisherman, responded, "No, there's not. There's not a place within 30 miles. But if you go down the road a piece, turn left across the drawbridge, you'll be my guest for the night." The young man, whose name is known to us as Percival, did as he was told. And that night he witnessed a peculiar sight. The castle of the king, the Fisher King, was the Grail Castle. And that night the Holy Grail was brought into the great hall, and all the members of the royal party drank from it, except the king. He was unable to stand and to drink from the cup. The young man, who had been cautioned by his mother not to ask too many questions, said nothing. And that morning when he awakened, the castle, the king, the royal party, everyone had disappeared. The young man, Percival, in time became a knight, a very famous knight, one of the knights of the Round Table. He conquered enemies, he fought dragons, he saved fair damsels from distress, all the things a knight is supposed to do. And he helped the poor. But he was unhappy. One day he met a band of pilgrims, and sensing his unhappiness, they persuaded him to make his confession to the hermit. He did. The hermit listened, and then he said, "Go down the road a piece, turn left across the drawbridge." And Percival did as he was told. And once again he witnessed the same scene that he had seen 30 years before. When the Holy Grail is brought into the great hall, and everybody drinks from it, except the king, who is unable to stand. But this time, Percival does ask a question. He does two things. One, he offers a cup of water to the king. And two, he asks a question. As it turns out, it's the question. What is the purpose of life? And it is that question that shifts the focus of the lives of both of these men from feeding the ego to nurturing the soul. There's nothing that's in the story that suggests that the king was not a good king. But the wealth and the power was still paramount in his life. And because of that, he could not overcome the wound, because the wound was to his soul as well as to his body. The unprovoked act of violence that he had committed. And as far as the knight is concerned, Percival is without blame. He did all the things an exemplary knight would do. But he had discovered good deeds in themselves were not enough to bring happiness. And so in asking the question, what is the purpose of life? And in administering this act of compassion, Percival becomes the instrument of healing for the king, and in so doing is healed himself. And both are able to drink from the Holy Grail. Good story. Something to think about.